The corporate earnings calendar will be the busiest of this earnings season with big tech leaders, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, Apple, and Meta, all set to report quarterly results. Now, investors will be watching to see whether big tech has managed to keep delivering on expectations, particularly amid a rise in artificial intelligence. So joining us now to provide some context here is an associate professor with the finance department at UT Austin, Michael Surrey. Michael, thank you so much for coming back on to join us today.
Avery, thanks for having me on again.
So let's jump right in. Talk to us about why these big tech earnings are so crucial this week in particular.
Well, it's that time of the quarter, and all eyes are certainly on big tech and whether they can continue to beat expectations. Investors are going to care about the tone of guidance and the resilience of the business model, given all the uncertainties that are out there right now. So big tech earnings, as you mentioned, they're important to watch because they drive a huge slice of the S&P 500's earnings. Strong results could help extend the market's rallies, while any big miss, especially on the cloud or consumer demand, could shake investor sentiment fast, especially given the very high current valuations. Now, of course, tech companies are heavily exposed to fast-moving trends: cloud computing, AI, enterprise software, consumer devices, global supply chains. So that means that their earnings are essentially kind of a report card on how these big themes are performing in real time. When we look to earnings this week, you mentioned some of the big names. We have Microsoft, Meta, Google all reporting tomorrow. Amazon and Apple report on Thursday. And specifically, Microsoft's Azure and Amazon's AWS businesses are sort of the picks and shovels in this AI gold rush. So I'd be watching the growth rates in the cloud business. And if they keep accelerating, markets will read that as validation that AI demand is already converting into revenue and it's not just hype anymore. Now, Google is a bit more of a hybrid play as it has stable cash flows from search and ads, plus a higher growth potential coming from cloud and AI. Turning to Apple, the upgrade conversion to the iPhone 17 is ongoing, but investors will want to know whether Apple can keep margins up and push into new categories like the Vision Pro or other ancillary services. Plus, any signs that China is stabilizing would certainly help calm nerves. And then finally, we have Meta, which has continued its push for profitability and efficiency by relentlessly trimming costs. But it's still spending heavily in Reality Labs. So the big question is going to be whether AI recommendations can continue to power engagement on the Facebook and Instagram platforms while continuing to keep expenses under control. So all in all, I'd say this week is essentially a referendum on whether AI and the consumer can keep the market's biggest engines firing on all cylinders, and is definitely going to be an interesting one to watch.
We know that AI is something everyone's going to be looking at. I do want to ask you, though, so many of the companies you mentioned really have such a footprint here in Central Texas. So is there anything that Austin or the Texas community really should be watching for when these numbers come out for these companies that are obviously global?
No, absolutely. And while the earnings focus is certainly global, the ripple effects are definitely local. And what the companies are going to say this week is going to influence whether the local tech projects here are still a go, whether tech hiring remains strong, whether regionally based vendors and contractors are going to see upticks in business. And given how competitive the Austin metro market and the overall Texas region has been for technology hiring, data center and cloud expansions, a strong earnings and guidance cycle could further influence and reinforce our region's attractiveness, while weaker signals might slow some of the momentum that we've been fortunate enough to experience to this point. So I'd be watching for what that guidance looks like over the coming week.
So much to watch. Michael Surrey, thank you so much for always putting things in perspective for us and giving us the impact. I'm sure we'll be checking back in with you after we actually get a look at some of these report cards, as you said.
Great. Thank you so much, Avery.